Hello, BookTube. I have a great deal of affection for the order of Strigiformes. I have a great deal of affection for the well over 200 species of owls that inhabit this planet. I spent a lot of time reading about them. I spent a lot of time standing around in shin-deep slush waiting for them to appear out in some godforsaken haunt. I've also seen them quite a bit when I wasn't going out owling for them, just going about their business when I happened to be out in the wilderness at dawn or dusk. Uh, so I thought I would make a starter kit about owls, just to put some really good books in front of you to see whether or not they interest you. If you're not interested in the subject of owls at all, then this will not be the video for you. So we will start with a natural history. There'll be a few natural histories on this list. We'll start with a natural history of the owl, which, for better or worse, is the symbol of owls in the world. The great horned owl is the symbol of owls in the world. It is a big bird. It is majestic. Uh, it's an apex predator. It's extremely intelligent, but not in a human way. It's everything that we think about when we think about owls. And Barbara Joster Espenson did a book illustrated by Mary Barrett Brown. The illustrations in this are great, called Tiger with Wings, the Great Horned Owl. And if we're going to designate the Great Horned Owl as the image bearer for all owls, then you might as well read a book about them. And this is an older book. I don't think it's in print anymore, but it's wonderful on everything you need to know about great horned owls, about everything to know about where they live, how they hunt, how they socialize, how they mate, etc., etc. Then we can move on to YA fiction, so-called. This was written for young adults, but it was written for young adults 60 years ago, which again would put it around postgraduate level of complexity today. This is by Farley Mowat, and it's called Owls in the Family. And it is a slim novel about a young boy who rescues two lost owls from a brutish group of kids who are tormenting them, and brings them into his family. And the family eventually expands their role. They get to walk around in the house, wheel and whoops. They get to walk around in the house. They get to greet visitors. They also get a large enclosure of their own outside. And this is not, it's a novel about these two owls, but and it's not meant in any way to be a natural history, but Farley Mowat can't help himself. So this is an unbelievably realistic portrait of these two birds and how they act around the family's dogs and around the family's various humans. And it's delightful. It's one of a couple of examples of owls in fiction on this list. There is a young adult series about owls, mystical wizard owls, that will not be on this list. But this is well worth your time to find and may even still be in print. Then our next one is by Martin Windrow, and it is an example of a very common sub specialization of owl books. You actually saw it in Owls in the Family, and that is the human connection with owls. Owls are not like a lot of other birds in that they can be pretty sociable. If you put them in a house environment, they won't die trying to get out of it. They will instead examine where they are, maybe examine you, maybe get to know your habits a little, in a way that, for instance, a bald eagle is unlikely to do. And so there has sprung up over time a whole little library of books about humans either keeping owls in their home or getting to know owls in the wild on a one-to-one basis. Owls are very intelligent. They know perfectly well you're not a prey item. But once they're convinced that you're also not preying on them, they can be pretty interesting. They can be pretty interested in you. And they're not interested in the kind of a-hole in the back of the class way that corvids tend to be. They're interested in a more person-to-person way. And this book is The Owl Who Liked Sitting on Caesar, where the author lives with a tawny owl. And thereby is in a perfect position to watch this owl's behavior, learn the owl's personality. There are some harrowing moments, one harrowing scene in particular where the owl seems to go away, seems to escape. And the wary with bird owners of any kind here, especially once they've acclimated the bird to being indoors, if you're indoors, you're completely protected. You're getting regular meals. Once you've acclimated a bird to that, any kind of bird, bird owners always wary. Their heart is in their throat if that bird then gets out into the wild, because their senses will have dulled. They will be easy pickings for other birds. There's a harrowing scene like that here. There are a couple of other scenes that had me raise my eyebrows, but it's all in all a charming book. And will give you an insight into what owls are like when you're watching them, when they know you're watching them. Then we should do with a natural history again. Owls, of course, are all over the world, but I'm going to concentrate on North America here since it's my home, and these are the owls that I know best. And this is by Paul Johnsgaard. It might be out of print, but it's really good, really detailed. This is a biology and natural history of owls of North America. In this particular case, you don't have a great horned owl on the cover. You have an even bigger owl. But this goes into all the kind of scientific detail that you would want. You'd want at least one book on this list to do that. And this book does. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, the diameter of the eggs, how many are laid, the actual process of creating an owl pellet, and how it works, what do owls think of each other, how do they vocalize, and what can they see, and in what spectrums of light and whatnot. If you're interested in all of that, in addition to their natural history, a book like this, or this book particularly, is well worth it to do. Then owls also, in addition to being fascinating, they're also picturesque. Almost all of them are. They're picturesque on their own, and they add to that element by almost always being found in picturesque environments. Decrepit old barns, isolated lonely fence posts, sunset and sunrise, evocative times of day just inherently. So they have been the fodder for thousands of picture books. And a lot of those picture books are really good. I picked one that I really like, but you could easily pick a dozen others. This is by Mike Unwin, and it's called The Enigma of the Owl, an oversized picture book about owls. There isn't really that much that's enigmatic about owls, but people love to talk about them as nature's most enigmatic bird, mainly because they have such a cultural reputation. They have a huge cultural reputation as being wise, or portents of disaster, or portents of good fortune. But this is the kind of picture book that you put it on your lap and you page through it, and then maybe 2 years later you page through it again. It's a perfect example of that. So I thought I should have one of those on this starter kit. Then we can go back to fiction. Owls often feature in fiction. I am not including here The Sword in the Stone or The Book of Merlin by T.H. White, both of which feature an owl. I'm not including, again, the aforementioned YA Owls, a fantasy owl series that I know some of you are a fan of. I can't stand it, so it's not going to be on a starter kit of mine. But this is a novel by Stephen Bauer, not to be confused with the actor that you, if you're familiar with him at all, probably know as being poisoned by Gus Fring and ending up face down in his own swimming pool on Better Call Saul. This is not that, or Breaking Bad. This is not that Stephen Bauer, unless he had a previous to his acting life that I know nothing about. This is a fantasy novel from, 40 years ago, more than that. Probably difficult to find, never be back in print, called Saturday, with this kind of satire, not the actual weekday named after the god Saturn. And the reason that I mention this, it's a really good fantasy novel. It's a little hammy, but it's really, really good. And the villain in this book is a gigantic owl. And the reason that I bring it up as opposed to all the other fiction that I could bring up is because Stephen Bauer, whoever he is, understands on some basic level in the writing of this fantasy novel that owls actually are terrifying. We are accustomed, in 2025, you are accustomed to seeing them on Instagram Reels, where they're making funny faces or revolving their head all the way around or something like that. But most smaller animals in your northeastern forest would be terrified of an owl. First of all, they don't know what an owl looks like, most of them, because they don't see it coming. Most of the owl's four-legged prey, voles and rats and mice, have never seen an owl. It's kind of an amazing thing to think about. Corvids, the aforementioned a-hole corvids, have seen owls because they like to mob them during the day, like to make their life a living hell. But their prey, rabbits, voles, mice, most of those animals have never seen an owl. They don't go looking for them during the day, and if they die by an owl, at twilight or dusk or whatnot, the thunderclap of doom comes on them out of the sky completely silently. They're not even looking. So, if those creatures did know what owls were and what they looked like, they would be terrified of them. Owls are terrifying. They have a whole array of superpowers designed to make them perfect apex predators. It's like I said, the great horned owl is a big bird. A full-grown adult is fairly sizable. You would think, just intuitively, I've seen so many people. I've been out in the wild with so many people who thought anything that big is going to make noise when it moves. And great horned owls don't. And I don't mean they're silent. I don't mean they're soft. I don't mean that they fly softly. They don't make any noise at all. You doubt your eyes the first time you see a snowy owl or a great horned owl fly across a field when you're right up close to it. You doubt your eyes because it's not being confirmed by any of your other senses. And that is terrifying. That this book really captures that. Then we can go from young adult to a kid's book. I had to include this. All of you will know what's coming. This is one of my favorite kids' books. This is by Jane Yolen with illustrations by John Schoner. And this is Owl Moon. A glorious thing where a father and his child go out into the woods at sunset. They are calling owls. They are hooting and hooting. And the obvious idea here is that they're making themselves a little miserable. It's cold. It's coming on dark. They're making themselves a little miserable in the hopes of spotting an owl. I have done this many times, many times. And usually you are not successful. And that's not because there aren't any owls around. The owl is looking at you the whole time. It's because they don't want you to see them. But every once in a while, you get lucky. And they're as curious about you as you are about them, and they're perfectly willing to let you get a look at them. This is wonderful as a kid's book. It's also one of those kids' books, one of those illustrated kids' picture books, that I love most because they work just fine for adults with no kids in the picture at all. None at all. It's enchanting either way. Then we have a more recent thing. This is Jennifer Ackerman, who has made a little side career for herself out of writing books about birds, and all of them have been good. She wrote The Genius of Birds. That is so delightful. And she wrote a book just a couple of years ago called What an Owl Knows. And see, again, we have the world's most enigmatic birds. Owls are not the world's most enigmatic bird. There are plenty of birds that are more enigmatic in terms of it simply being a question of what we don't know. They're just popularly called that because they have that cultural reputation. And you'll notice on this starter kit, I am not giving you a history of that cultural reputation that owls have. The reason why we'd call them the wisest bird or the most enigmatic bird across cultures, across centuries. And the reason for that is because I've never read one of those books that was any good. I'd love to include one of those on this starter kit, but we can live without it. A lot of these books cover that ground anyway. This book does. And Ackerman is so good writing about birds of any kind that it was a source of joy to me that she wrote a book about owls. You will love it even if you only read one of these books. Then another one we can have here is something that I've mentioned on this channel before. I plucked this picture off the internet, but you should not buy the book that has this picture as its cover. This is by Bernd Heinrich, who wrote Ravens in Winter, wrote The Mind of the Raven. He spent a lot of time studying ravens and crows out in the wild, and if you do that, you are going to encounter owls. Those ranges, those times, and those interests completely overlap. And he wrote a book called One Man's Owl. This is a revised and edited edition of his book. So you want to look for the unedited version. I grabbed this in order to show it to you. And this is a case of the latter kind of owl interacts with human thing, where he doesn't adopt the owl. The owl is not living in his house, but it does get to know him, not just as a source of food handouts, but as a person. They do get to know each other, and the owl sticks around and makes himself known so that you can watch what he does and learn his habits, learn his patterns. And it's touching. Everything that Bernd Heinrich writes is great. This is also great. It's an earlier book, but well worth it if you are interested in going down an owl rabbit hole. This would be the one to do for this author. And then we can finish up with a book that I've recommended it a million times on this channel. There are a lot of you who are new to this channel, so I'm going to keep recommending things that I've recommended a million times before. I've recommended this a million times before. It is the best owl book. It is slim. It will take you an hour to read. You will never be without it again. Once you've read it, you will never be without it again. It's by William Service, and it is simply called Owl. And this is along the lines of what we've seen already, where a man takes an owl into his house and lets it live there. So Owl is walking around the bookshelves, walking along the tables, investigating everything. And they, while that is happening, are getting to know Owl. They're getting to know, again, behaviors, habits, quirks of personality and whatnot. It's not a long book, and it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Not in print anymore, unfortunately, but if you really want the number one on this starter kit, I can find a copy of this for you. I see it, and a lot of you don't have access to really good used bookstores, so you don't see it. Just let me know. But your library might be able to get you a copy, or you might be able to find one online if you can find a reputable seller, and it's worth it. So I couldn't help but end with this book, since it's my favorite owl book. So there you go. There's an owl starter kit. One of apparently an endless list of absolutely elementary Steve starter kits that I have not done. But this'll do for a start. So I'll wrap this up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.